The Grand Convergence Chamber hummed with 1,000 different voices. Representatives from hundreds of worlds filled the massive hall, their forms ranging from the crystalline Zephyri to the flowing gas-like beings of the Mist Collective. At the center platform, Ambassador Veltharion raised his primary appendage and the chamber slowly fell silent. Veltharion was known throughout the galaxy as a skilled negotiator. His iridescent scales caught the light as he spoke, making him appear almost divine to those watching. Today, he planned to make history. Today, he would end the most controversial policy in galactic history. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice carrying through the chamber's acoustic systems. "We gather today to discuss a relic of our past, a fear-driven decision made 200 years ago by beings who let panic guide their judgment. I speak, of course, of the human quarantine." A wave of murmurs spread through the assembly. The younger delegates nodded and whispered to each other. The older ones remained still and quiet. "For 2 centuries, Veltharion continued, we have kept an entire species locked in their own solar system. We have denied them the right to trade, to travel, to join the galactic community. And why? Because of outdated reports and paranoid fears. The humans are a young species, yes. They are still learning, but they deserve a chance." Representative Shikara of the Atani Federation stood next. Her voice was bright with enthusiasm. "Ambassador Veltharion speaks truth. I have studied the humans. They are innovative and creative. They have art, music, and philosophy. They have rebuilt their world after war and disaster. They show every sign of being valuable partners. This ban is nothing more than discrimination." More voices joined in agreement. Young delegates from across the galaxy stood to support the proposal. The chamber filled with passionate speeches about justice, equality, and progress. The tide was turning. The vote would surely pass. Then a voice, ancient and heavy, cut through the noise like a blade through water. "You do not know what you are asking for." The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to the back corner where the oldest delegate sat. Archivist Kethral rose slowly from his seat. He was a Mortexian, one of the longest-lived species in the galaxy. His body was covered in the scars and markings of 20,000 years of life. He had been present at the original vote to quarantine humanity. "Archivist," Veltharion said with barely hidden impatience. "With respect, the galaxy has changed. We cannot make decisions based on ancient fears." "Ancient?" Kethral's laugh was bitter. 200 years is nothing. A blink, a heartbeat. I was there when we made this decision. I watched what happened. I helped write the isolation accords. He moved toward the center platform, his movement slow but purposeful. The younger delegates watched him with expressions ranging from curiosity to annoyance. They had heard stories, of course. Old tales told to frighten children. But surely that was all they were. Stories. "You want proof," Kethral said. It was not a question. "You want to know why we locked the humans away? You think we were cowards, afraid of a species that builds things from metal and still uses chemical rockets. You think the ban is based on prejudice and fear. Show us then," a young delegate shouted from the crowd. "Show us why we should fear them." Kethral stopped at the central podium. His ancient eyes swept across the assembly. "Very well. But understand this. What you are about to see is not entertainment. It is not a historical curiosity. It is a warning that our predecessors left for us. A warning that we, in our wisdom, are about to ignore." He activated the chamber's main display system. The lights dimmed. A holographic projection appeared in the center of the room, massive and 3-dimensional. It showed a blue and green world, beautiful and inviting. "Earth. This footage is from the archives," Kethral explained. "It has been sealed for 200 years. Classified at the highest level. Only the oldest members of the council have clearance to view it. Today I am sharing it with all of you. I am breaking the seal because you need to understand." The image shifted. Now it showed a fleet of warships approaching Earth, massive vessels bristling with weapons. The insignia on their hulls marked them as belonging to the Kronish Empire. "The Kronish Empire," someone whispered in the chamber. "They conquered 47 systems. 47 systems before Earth," Kethral corrected. "They were the dominant military power in this sector. They followed a simple pattern. Arrive at a new world, demonstrate their strength, demand surrender. Most species submitted immediately. Those who resisted were destroyed. The Kronish method was efficient. It was brutal, and it was unstoppable." The footage continued. The Kronesh fleet broadcast their message to Earth. Their demands were simple: surrender all weapons, submit to Kronesh rule, provide resources and labor. In return, Earth's population would be allowed to live. The chamber watched as Earth's response came through. It was short. Just 3 words in the human language transmitted across all frequencies. The translation appeared on the display. "Come and take it." Some of the younger delegates laughed. Veltharion shook his head. Primitive bravado. Foolish pride. Surely they realized they could not win. They knew exactly what they were doing, Kethril said quietly. Watch. The Kronesh fleet descended on Earth's major cities. The invasion began. The footage showed Kronesh soldiers, each one 3 times the size of a human, armored and armed with weapons that could level buildings. They expected quick surrender. They expected the usual pattern. They got something else entirely. The first battle footage made several delegates look away. Humans fought with weapons that seemed primitive compared to Kronesh technology. But they did not run. They did not surrender. When their weapons ran out of ammunition, they used rocks. When they lost their limbs, they continued fighting with whatever they had left. One clip showed a human soldier with a severed arm. Instead of retreating, instead of dying, he picked up his own detached limb and used it as a club against the Kronesh trooper who had cut it off. He did not stop until both he and his enemy were dead. The chamber was no longer laughing. The Kronesh commanders sent reports back to their fleet, Kethril narrated. They are confused. They note that human soldiers continue fighting long past the point where other species would have retreated. They report that humans seem to ignore pain and injury. They express concern that standard psychological warfare tactics are not working. More footage played. Weeks of combat. The Kronesh controlled Earth's major cities, but they could not hold them. Humans attacked from sewers, from buildings, from underground tunnels. They sabotaged supply lines. They studied Kronesh technology during battles and found its weaknesses. Within a month, humans were using captured Kronesh weapons. Within 2 months, they had reverse-engineered Kronesh communications and were intercepting military orders. Within 3 months, they had built their own versions of Kronesh guns using materials they found in ruined cities. The footage showed a Kronesh admiral speaking to his command staff. The translation appeared on the display. His words were simple and terrible. They will not stop. We have killed millions of them, and they will not stop. They are learning from us faster than we can adapt. They turn our own weapons against us. They do not fear death. They do not accept defeat. We cannot win this war. We can only make them pay a price for victory, and they are willing to pay any price. The final clip showed the Kronesh flagship. A civilian human transport ship, damaged and leaking atmosphere, was accelerating toward it. The Kronesh tried to destroy it, but it kept coming. At the last second before impact, the transport activated drives that should have been impossible. It struck the flagship at a speed that turned both vessels into plasma. The crew of the transport had been 73 humans. They had hijacked the ship. They had modified its engines. They had calculated the exact trajectory needed. And they had flown it directly into the enemy command vessel, knowing they would die. The projection faded. The lights in the chamber slowly returned to normal. But the silence remained. No one spoke. No one moved. Veltharion sat in his seat, his scales no longer shimmering. All the confidence had drained from his bearing. Kethril looked around the chamber at the shocked faces. His voice was soft but carried to every corner. The Kronesh Empire collapsed within 5 years. The humans never stopped fighting. They could not be negotiated with because they would not accept terms. They could not be frightened because they did not fear death. They could not be defeated because they did not understand the concept of defeat. He paused, letting his words sink in. That was the first contact war, he continued, and you have only seen the beginning. What I have shown you is humans defending their own world. Now I will show you what humans do when someone threatens what they care about. I will show you what happens when you make them angry. The lights dimmed again. The display activated, and the chamber prepared to witness something worse than war. They were about to see human vengeance. The holographic display flickered back to life. The delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Many wanted to leave, but none dared to move. Kethril stood at the podium, his ancient face showing no emotion as he watched them. This next section of footage comes from 6 months after the invasion began, he explained. The Kronesh Empire had committed 40% of their total military forces to Earth. They controlled most of the major cities. Human military resistance appeared to be broken. Kronesh Command believed victory was days away. The display showed Earth from orbit. Massive areas of the surface glowed with fires. Cities lay in ruins. The beautiful blue and green planet from the earlier footage now looked like a dying world. They believed they had won, Kethrall said. They were wrong. The footage shifted to show a Kronesh supply depot in what had been a human city. Kronesh soldiers moved supplies and equipment. Everything appeared calm, routine, safe. Then the attack came. Humans emerged from the sewers, from collapsed buildings, from tunnels that should not have existed. They hit the depot from 6 directions at once. The Kronesh tried to respond, but the humans knew exactly where to strike. They targeted fuel supplies first, then communications, then the command center. Within minutes, the depot was destroyed. The Kronesh forces tried to pursue the attackers, but the humans vanished into the ruins as quickly as they had appeared. This pattern repeated across the planet, Kethrall narrated. The humans had not been defeated. They had gone underground. They were learning, adapting. They studied Kronesh tactics during every engagement. They identified patterns. They found weaknesses. And they exploited them. More footage played. A Kronesh patrol ambushed in a narrow street. A supply convoy destroyed by improvised explosives. A command post overrun by humans using captured Kronesh weapons. Every clip showed the same thing. Humans refusing to give up, learning from every fight, becoming more dangerous with each passing day. One clip showed a damaged Kronesh weapon lying in the rubble. A human picked it up, examined it for perhaps 30 seconds, then began taking it apart. Within minutes, he had identified the power source and was explaining to other humans how to rebuild it using materials they could find in the ruins. They reverse engineered. "Our weapons in the field," a Kronesh voice said in the recording. The translation appeared on the display. During combat, while under fire, this should not be possible. No species learns this fast. The display showed a human manufacturing facility, hidden deep underground. Humans were building weapons using a combination of their own technology and stolen Kronesh designs. The weapons were crude, ugly, and absolutely effective. The Kronesh sent more forces, Kethrall continued. 70% of their empire's military was now committed to Earth. They brought specialized weapons. Atmospheric processors that could burn entire cities. Biological agents. Weapons they had never needed to use before. The footage showed these weapons being deployed. Entire human cities disappeared in firestorms. Biological clouds spread across continents. The death toll was catastrophic. "They killed billions," someone in the chamber whispered. Surely that broke them. Surely they surrendered. Kethrall's laugh was bitter and cold. "You still do not understand. The more the Kronesh killed, the more determined the humans became. They did not break. They learned to fight through biological weapons. They developed defenses against atmospheric burners. And they began planning their counterattack." The display showed a new clip. Human ships built from salvaged Kronesh vessels and Earth materials were leaving the planet. They were crude and ugly. They violated every principle of good engineering. But they flew, and they were armed. "Impossible," Beltharion breathed. They did not have spaceflight capability. They were centuries away from void combat. "They had 1 year of captured technology," Kethrall replied. 1 year of studying Kronesh ships. 1 year of desperate innovation. And they built a fleet. It was small. It was weak. By every military calculation, it should have been destroyed in minutes. The footage showed the battle. Human ships attacked the Kronesh orbital forces. The first wave was destroyed almost immediately. The second wave lasted slightly longer. The third wave used tactics learned from watching the first 2 die. By the 10th wave, the humans were winning. They accepted losses that would have broken any other species, Kethrall explained. But every loss taught them something. Every destroyed ship provided data. Every dead crew member's sacrifice bought knowledge. They were not just fighting. They were learning. And the cost did not matter to them. A new recording played. A Kronesh admiral speaking to his command staff. His voice shook with something the delegates had never heard from a Kronesh before. "Fear. They sent a message to our fleet today," the admiral said in the recording. It was not a threat. It was not a demand. It was a promise. They said, "If we cannot win, we will make sure winning costs you everything. We will make you regret that you ever found our world. We will teach you that some prices are too high to pay. The Admiral paused, and when he continued, his voice was hollow. I believe them. The footage shifted again. It showed Kronesh worlds far from Earth being attacked. Human ships had somehow crossed interstellar space. They struck at Kronesh supply lines, manufacturing centers, military bases. They could not win these battles. They did not need to. They just needed to make the Kronesh bleed. The war lasted 3 more years, Cathrall said. The Kronesh Empire crumbled, not because the humans defeated them in battle, but because the cost of fighting humans was too high. The Kronesh could not sustain the losses. Their economy collapsed. Their subject worlds rebelled. Their military fell apart. The final clip from this section showed Earth after the war. The planet was scarred beyond recognition. Entire continents were wastelands. The population had been reduced by 80%. By any reasonable measure, humanity should have taken centuries to recover. The timestamp on the footage advanced. 3 years after the war ended, Earth showed cities being rebuilt, space stations under construction, mining operations throughout the solar system. Humans moved across the display like insects rebuilding their colony after a flood. Busy, determined, unstoppable. This is what we failed to understand, Cathrall said quietly. Humans do not break. They adapt. They learn. They rebuild. You can hurt them. You can kill billions of them. But you cannot stop them. They will rise from the ashes stronger than before. A new series of clips began playing. These were labeled as incident reports from the years following the war. The first showed human salvagers finding a derelict colony ship in their asteroid belt. The ship belonged to the Vexthor species. Its life support was failing. The automated distress call said the crew had perhaps 6 hours before the atmosphere became lethal. The humans received the signal. They responded immediately. Their ship reached the colony vessel in 4 hours. Then they did something remarkable. They repaired it. The footage showed human engineers crawling through the derelict ship, cutting through walls, bypassing safety systems, connecting systems in ways that violated every engineering principle. They used duct tape and wire and sheer stubbornness to make a dying ship live again. It took them 6 hours and 17 minutes. 17 minutes after the life support should have failed, but it worked. The Vexthor crew survived. Later, Vexthor engineers examined the repairs. Their report was included in the footage. This should not work. The modifications violate 15 safety protocols. The connections are unstable. The power routing makes no sense. But it functions. Somehow it functions. We do not understand how they knew this would work. We are not sure they knew. They simply tried everything until something succeeded. More incidents played on the display. Humans responding to distress calls across their region of space. Humans defending alien colonies from pirates without being asked. Humans solving impossible engineering. Problems through methods that made professional. Engineers weep. One particularly disturbing clip showed a human medical ship responding to a plague outbreak on a quarantined station. Every species in the galaxy had declared the station a total loss. The protocol was clear. Destroy it before the disease spreads. The humans refused. There are 30,000 beings on that station, the human captain said in the recording. We did not come this far to let people die. They went to the station. They worked in infected zones with inadequate protection. They lost 40% of their crew to the disease. But they saved the station. More than that, they studied the disease, isolated it, and found a cure within 18 months. The disease had killed millions across a dozen species over 20 years. The humans eradicated it in less than 2. Every species that encountered them reported the same thing, Cathrall said. Humans do not understand the concept of impossible. They do not accept limitations. They do not know when to quit. He let the words hang in the air for a long moment. Ambassador Veltharian, he said, turning to face the Zephyri diplomat. You asked for proof that humans are dangerous. You are correct that what I have shown you proves they are capable of great compassion and heroism. They save strangers. They solve impossible problems. They refuse to abandon people in need. Veltharian seemed to regain some confidence. Then you support my position. They should be welcomed into galactic society. The display showed a human colony world. Small settlements dotted the surface of a moon orbiting a gas giant. The colonists had been there for perhaps 5 years, building farms and homes far from Earth. They were miners, farmers, engineers. Ordinary people trying to build a new life. Then the Krixnov arrived. The Krixnov Syndicate was one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the galaxy. They trafficked in stolen goods, weapons, and most profitably, slaves. For centuries they had operated with near immunity. They were too powerful for most governments to challenge. They had connections everywhere. They paid the right people and avoided the wrong fights. The raid on the human colony was supposed to be simple, quick, profitable. The humans were isolated and poorly defended. The Krixnov struck at night. They disabled communications first, then landed their ships. They rounded up the colonists with brutal efficiency. The footage showed human families being loaded onto slave ships. Children crying. Parents fighting against restraints. The Krixnov treated them like cargo, like animals. Over 200,000 humans were taken from 7 different colony worlds over the course of 3 months. The Galactic Council condemned the raids. They issued statements. They called for negotiations. They did what they always did. They talked. But they did not act. The Krixnov were too dangerous to challenge militarily. It was easier to express regret and move on. Earth's government sent formal protests. They demanded the return of their citizens. They threatened legal action. The Krixnov ignored them. After all, what could humanity do? They had no military presence in deep space. They were still limited to their own small sector of the galaxy. They were weak. The Krixnov made a critical error. They assumed human weakness meant human acceptance. 6 weeks after the last raid, human military vessels entered Krixnov space. The fleet was small by galactic standards. 20 ships, maybe 30. They were outgunned and outnumbered. Every tactical analysis predicted their swift destruction. The first battle went as expected. The Krixnov destroyed half the human fleet. The survivors retreated. The Krixnov celebrated their easy victory. 2 weeks later, the humans came back. This time with 40 ships. The battle lasted longer, but the result was the same. The Krixnov won. The humans retreated. The Krixnov began to realize something was wrong when the humans returned a 3rd time. Then a 4th. Then a 5th. Each time with more ships. Each time with better tactics. Each time learning from their defeats. The footage showed a Krixnov strategy meeting. The commanders were reviewing battle data. One of them spoke, and the translation appeared on the display. They are not retreating. They are studying us. Every battle teaches them our weaknesses. They accept catastrophic losses to learn how we fight. This is not a military campaign. This is an education. And we are the lesson, another commander responded. So we destroy them. We commit more forces. We end this with what? The first commander replied. They have already cost us 30% of our military strength. And they keep coming. Where are they getting these ships? Where are these resources coming from? The answer, as subsequent investigation revealed, was simple and terrifying. Every human colony had been converted to a war economy. Every civilian ship had been repurposed or rebuilt. Humans were building warships in civilian shipyards using improvised methods and salvaged materials. The ships were not pretty. They were not elegant. But they worked. And more importantly, they kept coming. By the 6th month of the conflict, the Krixnov were winning every battle but losing the war. Human tactics had evolved to counter Krixnov advantages. Human weapons, though inferior, were used with devastating creativity. Human pilots flew their ships like weapons themselves, willing to trade their lives for Krixnov kills at ratios that made no strategic sense. The footage showed a transmission that the Krixnov sent to their leadership. The captain's voice was strained. We intercepted human communications today. They were not encrypted. I believe they wanted us to hear. They said, we do not care about the odds. We do not care about the cost. We came here for one reason. We want our people back, and we will burn your entire civilization to ash to get them. The captain paused. I recommend we negotiate. Release the humans. Cut our losses. These beings are not rational. They cannot be reasoned with. They do not fight like any species we have encountered. They fight like the universe itself has wronged them. The Krixnov leadership refused. They would not show weakness. They would not negotiate with a minor species. Instead, they decided to make an example. They executed 100 human prisoners and broadcast the footage. It was the worst mistake they ever made. The display showed what happened next. The humans stopped trying to capture Krixnov facilities intact. They stopped taking prisoners. They stopped following any rules of war. They became something else entirely. A Krixanov stronghold refused to release human prisoners. The humans demanded their release. The Krixanov refused. The human response was broadcast across all frequencies in Krixanov space. Then there is no stronghold. The footage showed the moon that housed the stronghold. Human ships bombarded it from orbit for 3 hours. When they stopped, the moon's surface was molten. Everything on it was gone. The prisoners, the guards, the facilities, everything. The humans sent another message. You killed our people. We killed yours. Every time you harm a human prisoner, we will destroy one of your worlds. We will not negotiate. We will not compromise. You started this by taking what was ours. We will end this by taking everything you have. The chamber watched in horrified silence as the footage continued. It showed human forces hunting down every Krixanov operation. Slave markets were destroyed. Holding facilities were assaulted. Transport ships were boarded. The humans did not negotiate. They did not ransom. They simply took back what was theirs and destroyed everything else. A particularly disturbing clip showed human soldiers breaching a Krixanov slave-holding facility. The firefight was brutal. The Krixanov guards fought desperately, but the humans kept coming. When wounded, they continued fighting. When their weapons were empty, they used their hands. When the facility was secured, they found 70 human prisoners, all alive. The human commander stood among his wounded soldiers and spoke into his communicator. We have them, all 70. Moving to extraction. Facility will be demolished after we leave. Behind him, engineers were already placing charges throughout the structure. The Krixanov syndicate tried to strike back. They attacked human civilian targets. They deployed biological weapons. They used every dirty tactic they had developed over centuries of operating in the shadows. Nothing worked. The humans adapted to every attack. They traced every operation back to its source, and they eliminated it. 14 months after the conflict began, the Krixanov syndicate ceased to exist. Their leadership was dead. Their facilities were destroyed. Their networks were dismantled. Their assets were seized. An organization that had operated for centuries was erased in just over a year. The final transmission from the human fleet admiral was broadcast across Krixanov space. Every surviving Krixanov member heard it. The message was simple. You took our people. We came across the stars to get them back. We destroyed your ships. We burned your bases. We hunted you across 100 worlds. This is what happens when you take what belongs to us. This is the price of making humanity your enemy. Remember this. Tell your children. Tell everyone who will listen. The humans crossed the void for vengeance. They will do it again. The display showed the aftermath. Krixanov space was in chaos. Without the syndicate's iron grip, dozens of species they had oppressed rose up. Former slave worlds declared independence. The power vacuum was immense, and through it all human ships patrolled, ensuring that no one tried to rebuild the slave trade. They stayed for 5 years. They helped stabilize governments. They provided aid. Then they left. But everyone remembered. Everyone knew. The humans had come for their people and nothing had stopped them. The footage ended. The lights in the chamber slowly returned. But the silence remained absolute. Kethrol's voice was soft, but it carried to every corner. This is why we created the isolation accords. Not because humans are evil. Not because they lack compassion. But because they are the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. They do not have limits. They do not accept defeat. They do not forgive threats to their own. He looked around the chamber at the pale faces of the delegates. We held an emergency session after the Krixanov retaliation war. We reviewed everything we knew about humanity. We studied their psychology, their history, their nature, and we came to a conclusion. If we integrate them into galactic society, eventually someone will provoke them. Someone will push too far. Someone will threaten what they care about. And when that happens, they will respond with everything they have. They will cross any distance. They will pay any price. They will destroy anything in their path, not because they are cruel, but because that is what they are. Survivors, fighters, beings who refuse to accept that anything is impossible. Ambassador Veltharian sat in his seat, all his earlier confidence gone. He looked like he wanted to speak but could not find words. Representative Shikara raised a trembling hand. So we voted to isolate them, to keep them locked in their system, to protect ourselves from them. The silence in the Grand Convergence chamber stretched on. No one wanted to be the first to speak. The footage had shown them something that shook their understanding of the galaxy. Ambassador Veltharion, who had entered the session with such confidence, now sat hunched in his seat. His scales had lost their shimmer. Finally, an elder delegate from the Tharnax Confederation rose. She was ancient even by galactic standards, her body supported by mechanical aids. She had been present at the original vote. "I voted for the Isolation Accords 200 years ago," she said. "I watched the footage then as you have watched it now. I saw what humans are capable of, and I made a choice. I chose to lock them away. Not as punishment, as protection." She paused, gathering her strength. "But I wonder now if we made the right choice. We have kept them isolated for 2 centuries. What have they become in that time? Have they grown more peaceful? Or have we simply given them time to prepare?" Archivist Kethral stepped forward. He activated the display once more. This time it showed recent intelligence reports, data collected by monitoring stations at the edge of human space. "We have maintained constant surveillance," he explained. "These reports show what humanity has achieved during their isolation." The numbers appeared on the display. Human population, 45 billion spread across every world and moon in their solar system. Industrial capacity increased by 8,000%. Military fleet, 600 warships with production continuing. Technology level, approaching galactic standard, achieved through their own research without outside assistance. "They have not been idle," a young delegate whispered. "They have been preparing." "For what?" another asked. "War? Or integration?" Kethral showed more data. Human cultural transmissions intercepted by monitoring systems, movies, books, music, and most disturbing to the Council, training programs. The humans had been studying the footage of their own wars. They had been analyzing their successes and failures. They had been teaching their children about the Kronish War and the Krixnav retaliation. One intercepted transmission showed a human military academy. Cadets were studying the battle tactics used during the First Contact War. The instructor's words were chilling in their simplicity. "Our ancestors faced impossible odds and won, not through superior technology, not through numbers, but through determination, through the refusal to accept defeat, through the understanding that some things are worth any price. You are their children. You carry that same fire. Never forget what they achieved. Never forget what we can become when we are pushed to our limits." The chamber stirred with unease. Representative Shikara stood, her earlier enthusiasm completely gone. They view their isolation as training time. They are preparing for when the ban is lifted, or for when they break it themselves. "We cannot keep them locked away forever," another delegate argued. "Eventually they will expand beyond their solar system. Eventually they will join galactic society whether we vote for it or not. The question is whether we do it on friendly terms or wait until they force the issue." Ambassador Veltharion finally found his voice. It was quiet, uncertain. "Perhaps we could establish limited contact, a small embassy, control trade, monitor them closely, integrate them slowly. And if someone provokes them during this integration," an elder delegate asked, "if some species decides to test these dangerous humans, if some pirate raids a human colony, if some fool starts another war?" The question hung in the air without answer. Then the chamber's alert system activated. An incoming transmission. High priority. The source code identified it as coming from Earth. Kethral looked at the transmission data. "They have been monitoring this session. They know we are debating their status. Should we receive it?" Veltharion asked. "Let them speak?" A vote was called. It passed. The transmission was accepted, the display activated. A human woman appeared. She was middle-aged, wearing formal diplomatic attire. The translation systems identified her as Dr. Sarah Chen, United Earth's ambassador to galactic affairs. A position that had existed for 200 years despite having no galaxy to interface with. "Honored delegates," she began. Her voice was calm, professional, but there was steel beneath it. "We know you are debating our status. We know you have reviewed the historical footage. We know what you have seen." She paused, letting her words register. "We respect your decision, whatever it may be. If you choose to lift the ban, we will prove to be valuable partners. We will share our knowledge. We will trade fairly. We will defend our allies with everything we have. We have much to offer the galactic community." Another pause. Her expression remained neutral, but her eyes were hard. "If you choose to maintain the ban, we understand. We will respect galactic borders. We will remain in our solar system. We will continue to develop on our own. We harbor no resentment. We accept your choice." She leaned forward slightly. When she spoke again, every word was precise and deliberate. "But I want to be very clear about one thing. We have not been idle during our isolation. We have grown. We have built. We have prepared. And if anyone, anywhere, decides that our isolation makes us vulnerable, if anyone decides to test us, if anyone decides that humans are easy prey, if anyone thinks that 200 years has made us weak," she paused. The silence stretched. "You have seen the footage. You know what happened to the Kronish Empire. You know what happened to the Krixnav Syndicate. That was us at our weakest. That was us when we were young and inexperienced. That was us 2 centuries ago." Her smile was cold and terrible. "We are no longer young. We are no longer weak. We are no longer inexperienced. So to anyone watching this transmission who might be thinking about exploiting humanity's isolation, I have a simple message. Ask the Krixnav how it worked out for them. Oh wait, you cannot. They do not exist anymore." The chamber sat frozen. No one breathed. No one moved. Dr. Chen's expression softened slightly. "We hope for friendship. We truly do. We believe in cooperation and mutual benefit. We want to join you as partners, not as threats. We want to share in the wonders of galactic civilization. We want to learn from you and teach you in return. But make no mistake, we are ready for anything. We have prepared for every possibility. We hope you choose peace. But if you choose otherwise, or if you simply ignore us and someone else makes that choice, we will respond. And you have seen what our response looks like. The choice is yours, honored delegates. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. The display went dark. The chamber remained silent for a full minute. Finally, Kethril spoke. "You have heard humanity's message. You have seen the evidence. Now we must decide, do we maintain the isolation accords? Do we lift them completely, or do we seek a middle path?" Ambassador Veltharion stood. He looked like he had aged years in the past few hours. "I withdraw my proposal to fully integrate humanity. I was wrong. I did not understand what we were dealing with." Representative Shikara stood next. "But we cannot keep them locked away forever. They are right about that. Eventually, whether we allow it or not, they will expand. They will join galactic society. The question is whether we build a relationship now on controlled terms or wait until they force the issue. I propose a modification to Ambassador Veltharion's original plan," she continued. "We maintain the isolation accords, but we establish limited diplomatic contact, a small embassy, carefully controlled trade, cultural exchange. We build a relationship slowly. We learn to understand each other, and we monitor carefully. If they prove trustworthy, if they prove capable of peaceful coexistence, then in time, perhaps in another century, we can consider full integration. But we do it slowly. We do it carefully. We do it in a way that protects everyone." The debate began. It lasted for hours. Delegates argued every point. Some wanted complete isolation to continue. Others supported limited contact. A few brave souls even suggested full integration, arguing that humanity's message showed they wanted peace. Finally, the vote was called. The modified proposal passed with a strong majority. The isolation accords would remain in place, but limited diplomatic contact would be permitted. A human embassy would be allowed at the council. Small-scale trade would be authorized. Cultural exchange programs would begin, and most importantly, the galaxy would watch. They would monitor. They would be ready. As the session ended and delegates filed out, Kethril remained at the podium. He looked tired, ancient. He had carried this burden for 2 centuries. Now he would carry it for however many years remained to him. A young aide approached him. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Kethril was quiet for a long moment. "I do not know. We chose coexistence over confrontation. We chose to build bridges instead of maintaining walls. But humans are unpredictable. They are capable of great compassion and terrible violence, often at the same time. We hope we have chosen wisely. We pray we have chosen well. And if we have not?" the aide asked. Kethril looked at the empty chamber, at the place where humanity's message had played, at the seats where delegates had sat in shocked silence as they learned what humans truly were. "Then we will learn what 200 years of isolation has taught them. Then we will discover what they have become during their time alone. Then we will face the consequences of our choices." He turned to leave, then stopped. "But remember this, young one. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council's decision. The first human embassy had been established on Axis Prime, the neutral world that hosted the Grand Convergence Chamber. Dr. Sarah Chen served as Earth's first official ambassador to the galaxy. Her staff was small, only 12 people, but every one of them was carefully chosen. The embassy building was modest compared to other species representations. Human architecture was simple, functional, but observers noted that the building's foundations went very deep, much deeper than necessary for a diplomatic structure. The humans explained it was for storage. No one believed them. No one asked further questions. Dr. Chen had quickly become a familiar sight in the council halls. She attended sessions. She made connections. She learned names and customs. She was polite, professional, and utterly correct in all her dealings. Other ambassadors found her pleasant to work with. Some even began to relax around her. But Archivist Ketharal watched her carefully. He had lived too long to be fooled by pleasant smiles and diplomatic courtesy. He saw how she observed everything, how she asked seemingly innocent questions that revealed deep strategic thinking, how she never forgot a detail. She reminded him of a human general he had seen in the old footage. Patient, watchful, always preparing. One day, he requested a private meeting with her. She accepted immediately. They met in a neutral conference room, just the two of them. Ambassador Chen, Kethril began, I wonder if we might speak candidly. Of course, Archivist. I always prefer honesty. You were the one who delivered humanity's message to the Council. The one about the Crixinav. I was. That message was calculated to frighten us. To remind us what humans are capable of. It worked. Many delegates now fear your species. Dr. Chen met his ancient eyes without flinching. The message was honest. We want peace. We want cooperation. But we will not be victims. Not ever again. Kethril was quiet for a moment. Tell me honestly, what have you been building during your isolation? What are those 600 warships for? Defense, she replied simply. Defense against what? You were alone in your system. No one threatened you. No one threatened us because we were alone, because you locked us away. But we remembered what happened when we were vulnerable. We remembered the Kronish. We remembered the Crixnav. And we decided that would never happen again. So we built. We prepared. We made ourselves strong enough that no one would dare to test us. And if no one does, if the galaxy accepts you peacefully, Dr. Chen smiled, then we will have 600 warships that will never fire a shot in anger. We will use them to patrol trade routes, to rescue ships in distress, to defend our allies. They will be a waste of resources that we will happily accept. And if someone does test you, her smile faded, then the footage you showed the Council will look gentle by comparison. Because that was us 2 centuries ago. That was us when we were weak and unprepared. That was us learning. We are not learning anymore, Archivist. We have learned. And we have prepared. Kethril studied her for a long moment. I believe you. And that terrifies me. But I also believe that you truly want peace. That is what makes this so difficult. You are not warlike. You are not aggressive. You simply refuse to be victims, and that refusal makes you the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Perhaps, Dr. Chen said, or perhaps it makes us the most reliable allies. Because we remember loyalty, we remember who helps us, and we repay our debts, good and bad. The meeting ended shortly after, but Kethril left it with a better understanding of humanity. They were not monsters. They were not bloodthirsty. They were simply a species that had been pushed to their limits and refused to break. They had learned hard lessons about survival, and they would never forget those lessons. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the preparations continued. Deep in the orbital shipyards that ringed the planet, construction proceeded at a steady pace. Not rushed, not panicked, just constant, methodical work. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the observation deck of the primary shipyard. He watched as another warship took shape in the zero-gravity construction bay. It was the 647th ship, built since the isolation accords began. The humans had told the galaxy they had 600 warships. That was true. They had not mentioned the several hundred more under construction. A junior officer approached him. Sir, the Council has approved our request to establish trade routes with 3 systems. They are allowing limited human merchant traffic. Good. Begin the merchant marine training program immediately. I want every trade ship we send out to be capable of rapid conversion to military purposes if necessary. hidden weapon mounts, reinforced hulls, enhanced engines. They need to look like simple cargo vessels, but they need to be able to fight if war comes. Sir, do you really think war is coming? Admiral Webb looked at the young officer. At the hope in their eyes, at the belief that peace might last. He remembered being that young once, before the Krixnav raids, before his own sister had been taken, before he had spent 3 years hunting slavers across the stars. I hope not, he said finally. I truly hope not. But hope is not a strategy. Preparation is. We prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. That is how humanity has survived. That is how we will continue to survive. He turned back to the construction bay. The galaxy fears us because they have seen what we can do. They worry that we are preparing for war. But they misunderstand. We are not preparing for war. We are ensuring that anyone who considers war with us knows exactly what it will cost them. We are not building a fleet to conquer. We are building a fleet so terrible, so powerful, so obviously capable of total destruction that no one will dare to test us. We want peace. And sometimes the only way to guarantee peace is to make war so expensive that no one can afford it. The young officer absorbed this wisdom. So we become too dangerous to provoke. Exactly. The galaxy calls it the Isolation Accords. They think they locked us away to protect themselves. But what they really did was give us 200 years to become something they cannot defeat. They created the very thing they feared. And now they have to live with it. Across human space, similar conversations were happening. In military academies, where officers studied the wars of the past and prepared for the conflicts of the future. In research facilities where scientists push the boundaries of technology. In civilian centers where ordinary people supported the military buildup not out of aggression, but out of the simple determination that humanity would never again be vulnerable. The Isolation Accords had been meant to contain humanity, to keep them locked away until they could be safely integrated. But isolation had done something else. It had given humanity time. Time to grow. Time to learn. Time to build. Time to become something that could not be contained. And now, as the first human ships began to venture out into the galaxy, as the first trade agreements were signed, as the first diplomatic relationships were formed, the galaxy was beginning to understand what they had created, a species that had been forced to stand alone, a species that had learned to survive without help, a species that had built themselves into a power that rivaled the greatest civilizations in the galaxy. All while locked in a single solar system, all while isolated and ignored, all while preparing for the day when the galaxy would have to accept them as equals. That day had come, and the galaxy was not ready. Back on Axis Prime, Dr. Chen sat in her office and looked at the reports from Earth. Fleet expansion on schedule. Trade routes opening. Cultural exchange programs beginning. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The first phase of integration was working, but she also read the intelligence reports. The ones about species in the galaxy who resented humanity's inclusion. The ones about criminal organizations looking at human colonies as potential targets. The ones about military powers who saw humanity as a threat to be eliminated before it grew stronger. The threats were out there. They were real, and humanity would have to deal with them. She opened a secure channel to Earth, to the military command center that coordinated all of humanity's defense forces. The message she sent was simple. Continue all preparations. Maintain readiness. Do not provoke. Do not threaten. But be ready. Because sooner or later someone out there will test us. Someone will make the same mistake the Kronish made. The same mistake the Krixnav made. And when they do, we need to ensure it is the last mistake they ever make. The response came quickly. Understood. All forces at full readiness. We are prepared for any eventuality. Awaiting orders. Dr. Chen closed the channel and looked out the window of her office. She could see the grand convergence chamber in the distance. Could see representatives from dozens of species going about their business. Could see a galaxy that was slowly, carefully accepting humanity into its ranks. She hoped it would work. She hoped that peace would last. She hoped that humanity could prove themselves worthy of trust and friendship. But hope was not enough. It had never been enough. Humanity had learned that lesson in blood and fire. And so they prepared. They watched. They waited. They built their strength in silence and shadow. They made themselves so dangerous that only a fool would provoke them. They became the thing that nightmares were made of, not because they wanted to be feared, but because being feared was better than being vulnerable.